is astronomical. And I have with me Pastor Patsy Brock, who is also a nurse, and she has been used by the Lord in various ways in so many different venues regarding the gospel of Jesus Christ, and also in the area of helping people who have needs with health issues. So it's great to be with you today on this magnificent time that we have together, or during this magnificent time that we have together. Pastor Patsy Brock, how are you today?
I'm doing really good, Dr. Murphy.
Well, you look fantastic.
Well, thank you. That's a nice
Wow,
compliment.
my goodness gracious. Now, I hope your husband is looking as young as you are today.
Actually, I kind of don't hear that a lot. I hear that I'm the one that looks younger, so I grab onto that compliment and I'm going to hang on to it.
Well, that sounds pretty good. My goodness gracious. You know, I want to talk today about some things dealing with health and nutrition. And there's so many things to talk about in this particular show. The time will not permit to get into all the areas I would want to get into. But let's talk about the digestive system, and let's talk about the cycles, the body cycles in regards to how to eat, when to eat, what to eat, and the benefits that will have on the human body.
That's going to be very valuable information, and information that is very much needed.
You know, some of the things that you've heard me share, like the hundreds of programs I've done on other television networks and so forth, what are a couple of the things that regarding health and nutrition that stood out to you, something that's been informative to you?
One of the most amazing was when you introduced us to Silver Saw.
Ah, yes.
The colloidal formula.
Yep.
And just the ingestion of it, and then also
that's a mineral, the colloidal mineral. But I was introducing the nano minerals. That's the particles are smaller than the colloidal and so forth. Yeah.
But when just like with the curling iron burn that women always get, around their neck, and how it's so visible. And then one time I burned my hand on the stove, and it was amazing the healing that I had overnight.
Just on that burn.
Yes, it's amazing. And then another thing that you've introduced to me was the fruits. Not to mix the fruits with other
That's
foods.
what we're going to talk about today.
It was just so enlightening, because when you grow up, I grew up on the farm, you don't think about those things. You have a meal, then you run outside and you go over to the pear tree and you have a pear, or you run over to the apple tree, have an apple, or even you get into mom's grapevines and you're eating grapes after you have a full meal. And so you brought some really enlightening information to us concerning mixing fruits with your other foods.
Well, you don't look like a lady that grew up on the farm. She really doesn't look like a lady that grew up on the farm.
Oh, Dr. Murphy, let me tell you, did I grow up on the farm?
Tell us about that.
I was up at sunrise and before sunrise. And if you weren't up, my father came upstairs and got us up. And we had to have our morning meal, ate, and on that truck by the time it was ready to leave. And then we would come home for lunch, we'd have a quick lunch, then we'd be back out in that field till 6 o'clock at night. And then if we wanted our own money for spending after we worked all day, we had our own pickle patch. And we would pick pickles till dark, or 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Well, actually, you were picking something that was healthy.
Yes,
pickles,
I was.
My
Pickles.
Goodness, but all day. It's
Yes.
quite a chore there. By the way, if you would like to call in, there's a number on your screen you can call for prayer, or if you have questions regarding health and nutritional issues or dietary issues, things of that area dealing with nutrition. Talk to one of our prayer partners, what have you, and they'll get that information, take it down and get it to us. Also, they will pray for you if you have a need. And so this is an exciting time for you to get some answers to your questions, and at the same time, answers to your prayers. So once again, you were out in the fields like that?
And we always had 2 gardens. And I feel today that I'm a very healtty person.
Because of the eating from the garden.
We ate from the garden. We canned and froze all of our vegetables. We had a potato bin in the basement, in the cellar. And we grew our own beef and our own pork, which I've learned a lot about since then. And we had our own chickens. It was amazing how, our cows were homegrown, home-fed without steroids. We had our
No
own
genetically
milk.
modified
No.
ingredients.
Right. And then just
or
all
organisms.
those healthy vegetables from the ground. It's just so amazing. And I see the difference now when I buy things, from the store, from the market. It's not the same as going out and pulling it up from the garden.
Well, in the future, we will be talking about the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, all of the different phytochemicals and phytonutrients that's in those vegetables and those fruits and legumes and so forth that you on a farm were working, and you were enjoying some of that time, hopefully, as you were working. I know it was tiring, but those are the types of things that would benefit people. And as I understand it, the family farm, you guys would sell certain produce to some of the national chains, like restaurant chains and so forth like that. The kidney beans and so on.
To Wendy's for their chili.
Wow, well, to Wendy's, good plug for Wendy's there. That's great.
I have to tell you a little funny that when we go out sometimes and we take fresh vegetables, we like to go get our own peas,
Yes.
shuck them because they were so good right from the garden. And Mom, she always wanted us to wait till canning day. And she had this little rule: you do not go to that back row to get peppers. And I was just so curious. I got to get back there and get some of those peppers that we weren't supposed to have. Well, it was the biggest mistake I ever made because they were hot peppers. So I got caught dead ringer because we couldn't tolerate how hot they were.
Oh my goodness, I can only imagine the reaction to that.
And
My
then
goodness.
sometimes you get so hungry out in the field, we would cut up sugar beets. Well, the sugar wasn't yet processed from the beet, and we would eat sugar beet, raw beet, out in the field.
Actually, that was very healthy, the sugar beets, like sugar cane, especially sugar cane. When you're having the sugar cane and you're having it as a whole food, you're getting a small amount of the sugar, but because you're getting the fibers, the vitamins, the minerals, and all of the other components in there, you're getting that in balance, and it's healthy. It's when all of the sugars are extracted and you're not getting the fiber and the other nutrients that's in there, that we tend to run into problems. But that's what the market is looking for. It's the sugar, so that we can take a teaspoonful and sweeten this, or a tablespoonful to sweeten that. So that's great. It's great to have the sugar, but you were eating it in a way that it was actually healthy. Now let's talk about some of these things that regarding the different body cycles and how to eat foods. One of the things you brought up was the fruits, and how good fruit is. Fruit is very good for the body. It is you have so many proanthocyanidins and polyphenols and so many other nutrients that's in the fruits and in the vegetables. And so sometimes people will eat healthy things, but they will find that they're not healthy, and they wonder why. So I want to talk today to you about, and we'll dialogue on this, or in regards to eating things that are healthy, but eating them in the right combinations and at the right times. And so this is where people have gotten into trouble. I know people who actually battled cirrhosis of the liver, but they never drank. And they were puzzled as to why. And then I began to explain something about fruits with them. But first of all, let's look at the different cycles in the body. We were calling them for decades body cycles. Now another name has come up, and it's called intermittent fasting.
Yes.
And
That's a big with the keto diet. Everybody's doing intermittent keto fasting.
And so in the body cycles, there are three major cycles. One is the appropriation cycle. That's when you are ingesting food. One is when you're talking about ingesting food, though, that's a huge one, and there's a time frame for ingesting food. Then you have the next cycle, which is the assimilation cycle. And that's when the body is digesting and breaking down the foods. And then you have the third cycle, which is the elimination cycle. And that's when all of the organs that releases waste from the body are operating, and they need to have proper time to operate. Now, each cycle has an 8-hour window, and it should be 8 hours for eating, 8 hours for assimilating and digesting the food, and then 8 hours for elimination, for excreting the waste materials from the various things we have eaten. If those cycles are interrupted, we run the risk of not having homeostasis in the body, not having a balance in our health. We begin to slowly deteriorate in certain areas. We can deteriorate in the area of the bones, the joints, the muscles, in various tissues in the body. So when we're looking at, first of all, the appropriation cycle when we eat, as we look at that, let's look at what to eat.
Some of us like to have that cycle all the time.
Well, yes, hallelujah. But I was in a situation once when a lady was asking me, I was talking about these cycles, and she was asking me about the menstrual cycle. I said, that's a totally different issue.
Different.
But her mind wandered and she didn't catch it. So in case you're looking at this, we're talking about body cycles, but we're not talking about the fertility aspect of life. That's for another day. And that's some interesting things to share there that can be a great blessing, be of a great blessing to women and to men, especially when your spouse is experiencing post-menstrual or premenstrual and so on like that, especially the PMS. Men, you like to hear how to respond in those situations, and ladies, sometimes you want to know if everything is okay with you. Why are you feeling a certain way, and why do you have certain mood swings and so forth? Well, there are some nutritional things that can be of benefit in that area too, and at another time we'll talk about those. So in the body cycles here regarding the appropriation cycle, there's a time to eat, like you're eating. Let's say if you are on an 8-hour cycle and you start to eat at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, you are going to eat at 8. Your midpoint from that would be noon. Then 4 o'clock, you are done eating, and so on like that. And so that can be hard for people, but that's an 8-hour window for eating. That's why some people call it fasting and so on.
I would love to have that discipline, Dr. Murphy.
But there are ways to have certain snacks in between that can be healthy for you, such as eating certain fruits in between. Now I'll explain some things about that. Sometimes when people are eating their foods, like they'll have breakfast, then snacks, then you'll have lunch, snacks after that, then dinner. And for many, 4 o'clock is not a good time for dinner. 6 o'clock is more preferable, between 5 and 6. So in that case, then of course you would start to eat around 10 o'clock in the morning instead of 8. However, if you wanted to eat earlier than that and not interfere with the other cycles, you could eat high water content fruits. That's because fruits are different from all other foods we eat, unless we're using a food processor or a juicer or something of that nature.
So outside that 8-hour window, you could have fruits?
Yes, you can.
Awesome.
And so that takes care of the appetite. And fruits are pre-digestible. That is why. So you don't want to interfere with the digestive cycle, or once the digestive cycle has completed, you don't want to hinder the elimination cycle. So during the elimination cycle, you can have pre-digestible fruits. And so that's a big point for people.
Could you maybe give us some examples of those fruits?
Well, first of all, in regards to the high water content fruits, and those would be like apples, watermelon, all the melons, but the melon should be eaten separate from all other fruits, and not with vegetables and things of that nature. And melons have certain enzymes in it, and the enzymatic properties are different from other fruits and vegetables. Very high in water content and very healthy, but you have to watch the high content of sugar in the fruits. So that is why, as opposed to juicing a lot of fruits, it's best to eat the whole fruit, eat them raw. Fruits that you can have like with the rind in it, certain fruits you may not want to have the the outer rind that is bitter and so forth, but
Like
you
an
can have
orange or a
that.
grapefruit?
Yes, you can have that pulp and that rind, the inside part of the fruit.
Okay.
If you're having cantaloupe or something like that, you know.
okay.
Of course, most of the cantaloupe is that inner part, aside from the seeds. But melons should be eaten separate from other fruits. Now, fruits should be eaten alone. And if you're going to eat anything with fruits that's a solid, it should be something like almond nuts, because almonds are alkaline in nature, and they can go well with fruits, or especially if you're making almond milk out of the almond nuts and you're having fruit with it. Fruits should be eaten alone because they are pre-digestible. The low water content fruits would be things like bananas, and then you have dried fruits like dates and and dried fruits. Those things take longer to get out of the stomach. Let me explain this part about
Okay.
fruits. Fruits in the stomach will pass through the stomach within 35 to 45 minutes. High water content fruits.
All right.
Low water content fruits and dry fruits will take 45 minutes to an hour to
Wow.
get out of the stomach. That's quick. It takes vegetables 2 hours. It takes bread and the grains 2 hours. It takes meat between 3 and 5 hours to get out of the stomach.
Wow.
And so when you're eating foods in the morning, it's important to have the right combinations so that you don't get a backlash from it. Like when you have fruits with bread and with meat, it takes 2 hours for the bread to get out of the stomach, meat between 3 and 5 hours. High water content fruits, if you have an apple or you have something of that nature with your fruits, it only takes 30 minutes to 45 minutes maximum to get out of the stomach. It's pre-digestible. When you have the bread and the meat or the vegetables, it gets trapped in the stomach. If you're just having bread or vegetables, it's trapped in the stomach for an additional hour. If you're having meat, it's trapped in the stomach for 3 to 5 hours. During that time, during that time, the meat is going to putrefy because of the protein in it, and the fruit is going to ferment. That's why people sometimes later on in life, after decades, will wonder why do they have cirrhosis of the liver and other problems and they never drank. Well, that fermentation, the alcohol from eating healthy fruits, but not eating them at the right times, eating them in the wrong combinations, could cause issues like that in the body.
This is such valuable information. You know, I've even heard you speak many a time on the fruits and the cycles, but just again to have it be refreshed and for our audience to hear this, it's just amazing. And can you imagine if they could stick to a lifestyle like that and not have that heaviness even in there for 4 or 5 hours? I have eaten before in mixed foods, and you just have that heaviness and that gurgling going around.
Yeah, it's a gurgling in the stomach and so on like that, yes.
This is so
That's why
valuable.
sometimes like a Thanksgiving meal, the next day people feel the food still in the stomach. They get tired after eating. Of course, you can have, the tryptophan and so forth in the turkey and so forth. That can relax you. But sometimes people have had testimonies that the following day, after having a large Thanksgiving meal with the family and friends, that they could still, it's like they're still stuffed or bloated or something because a lot of the food is still there. What happens is with the Thanksgiving meal, they're having the meat, the poultry, they're having the stuffing, the bread and so forth. They're having their vegetables. And then on top of that, they're going to have cranberry sauce, which is a fruit. That's when the fermentation and the putrefaction starts after a couple of hours of that being in the stomach with the other foods. Cranberries are excellent and great for the health. It's good for the urinary tract. It helps with urinary tract infections and things of that nature. But when they're eaten at the wrong time or with the wrong foods, it can cause a problem. And most people are not aware of that. And so the next day they can still feel like they are full. And that's from having the fruit. But then they'll have mom's apple pie or grandma's
Yes.
apple pie and the cherry pie,
Yes, the raspberry
blueberry
pie.
pie and the raspberry and all of that. Delicious. But it's going to mix with all the other foods and cause digestive problems, indigestion, other digestive problems as well. Now, one thing that can help with that, if just planning to do that a few times a year, is to take digestive enzymes along with the foods at the same time they're eating or a few minutes before. Take some digestive enzymes that have like the lipase, the protease, and the amylase, along with bromelain and papain, other enzymes in there that will break down these foods. It'll break down the sugars, and it'll break down the different other things, nutrients that's in the food. And of course, if a person is having dairy and they are lactose intolerant, they know that it's important to have a lactate or some type of enzyme that will break that down so that they don't have that violent reaction in the abdominal cavity a couple of hours later, or a couple of hours after eating that. So that's important. Now, in the morning, if a person is having breakfast, coming out of the elimination cycle, and they're having breakfast, then they want to make sure that they eat their fruit first, and then wait a half hour to 45 minutes before eating other foods. And I know people like to put their jam on their toast, and then they like to put their fruit into their oatmeal and so on, and have that with their eggs and their various meat and stuff. Oh, ketchup on the eggs, huh?
So we get a farm.
Well, as you're getting the lycopene and the lutein that's in the tomatoes and so forth. However, now you're having that, and that's okay to have that. But for some people, the ketchup is cooked, and some people have high acid content with that, along with the other proteins that they're having. And then when the fruit is eaten on top of that, a few hours later or a couple of hours later, there's a problem. Ever traveled and stopped at a fast food restaurant while you were traveling? You had breakfast and you got a glass of orange juice. And
I haven't done the orange juice, no, but I've seen other people do
yes,
it.
and they would do that, and in less than 2 hours, there are some side effects from it. The orange juice is healthy, and most of the breakfast, I would hope, was healthy for them. But when they mixed it,
Combination.
ooh, that orange juice trapped in there, now you have high acidity in the stomach, high acid involvement there in the stomach, and that can really cause some problems if you're traveling and you're not near a restroom. It can be very uncomfortable. So having these right combinations of food can be very helpful. Once again, this is this is our first, this is like a first program, a pilot program for you. Just putting that out front for you as you're watching this program with Dr. Murphy. This is the Dr. Murphy Show. And also, if you need prayer, this is, by the way, I'm a born-again, Spirit-filled Christian or believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm Messianic as well. I'm a bishop and a Messianic rabbi, as well as a doctor and so on. So you can call in for prayer, and we have prayer partners standing by waiting to take your calls. Or if you have questions on health, nutrition, issues of that nature, you can also call and get your questions in, and on a future program they will be answered, if not on the program that's taking place that you are watching. And so now we're talking about health, but we're talking about how to maintain health with the proper body cycles operating in the right balance and in the right way. So Pastor Patsy is my co-host today as we're talking about these issues, Pastor Patsy Brock. And so as we're talking about these things regarding breakfast, when you have these various foods, and now you have the fruit with it, you're going to have stomach problems. The thing to do is to have the fruit 30 to 45 minutes before you eat other foods, or wait 45 minutes to an hour if it's low water content fruits or dried fruits. Then eat your other foods. After you have eaten a sandwich, if it's a vegetable sandwich, wait 2 hours before you eat fruits. If you have meat on a sandwich, wait at least 3 hours and then have your fruits, and so on. And vegetables, you can have that with whatever you're eating. Now, there are certain fruits you can eat at any time with anything, so long as, because they have certain enzymes in them, like papaya.
I remember that, yes.
Yes, lemon and lime. Those three you can have basically at any time. So if you're going to have a lemon meringue pie, or a lemon cream pie, or key lime pie, or something like that, you can have that. A papaya pie is great, and papaya, you know, they have, like, for instance, what do they call it? Peach cobbler, apple cobbler. You can make a papaya cobbler or papaya pie. Tastes similar to apple, between apple and peach. That's a good way to have a nice dessert with your nice flaky crust when you're having your Thanksgiving meal or other meals and you want to have some dessert along with it, some kind of pie and things
Can you
like
imagine
that.
the teenagers? Oh, Thanksgiving meal is over. We're going to have dessert now, and here's papaya pie.
Well, they wouldn't even know what it was unless you told them, you know, and they would have it, and
get
because
used
the
to it too,
recipes and the ingredients that you use in the recipe are similar to apple pie, and well, it can be made more like apple or more like peach cobbler or peach pie, and so that's good. It can be good, but I can see that kind of reaction from
Yes.
some kids. It's not their,
That's my first thought. It's like, can you imagine the teenagers?
but it's not the cherry pie, you know.
Yeah, or grandma's Dutch apple.
Yes. Now, here in these 3 cycles, after you have eaten during that 8-hour window, then you want to allow 8 hours for the food to assimilate and digest and get down to the cellular level. You want to get to every cell in your body. You want all the digestive processes in breaking those foods down to work. And you want the liver to work properly. You want all the organs in the body to work properly, and then you want to get these nutrients from these into these organs and into your cells, and benefit from them. Anything that the body is not absorbing is going to eliminate as waste. And you have the major waste organs. The largest one is the skin, and that's why sweating is important too. And it's also why exfoliating, it's why showering is important, or taking a bath, so that you get the waste that the skin is releasing from the body on a daily basis. And also, you know, you have the bladder and so forth, and the kidneys, so forth, and well, not kidneys, but the bladder is going to operate and release, and so kidney stones. I was just thinking about that. That's a whole different issue to deal with. And so, and you have, you know, the upper respiratory. You sneeze and you cough and you eliminate waste that way. And then you have the bowels, and where you excrete waste from the body. That should take place after 8 hours of assimilation, after the body has digested food. Now you're releasing all of the waste from the body. This is where most people miss it and where they mess up. Not knowing that they're messing up with that, not knowing that they could potentially set their health back gradually by doing so. It's they don't allow the elimination cycle a full 8 hours to work. Wow. So they will get up in the morning and they will have their breakfast, and then they'll have lunch, and they'll eat dinner, and they'll just eat other things in between. And during that time period, the elimination cycle is not working, and they'll cut it short after maybe 2 or 4 hours, and it doesn't completely work. There's so much to talk about in
It's
this.
all confused.
Yeah, we're out of time on this here, so just about so. But if they allow all 3 cycles to work, the elimination cycle to work, then it's going to cause them to experience greater health, and then they can start the appropriation cycle all over again once they allow that to work. So you eat 8 hours, and you don't eat other foods for 16 hours other than fruits. And
What a
that's
wealth
it.
of information. Just a wealth of information.
It's so much that goes into our bodies that can be healthy and cause great things to happen for us. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time on The Dr. Murphy Show. Till then, shalom.